Welcome to the program. Thanks for your time. This is Focus on Africa. I'm Wahiga Mwaura. Now, global food prices are rising again, with new warnings suggesting that Africa's economic outlook could worsen if ongoing global conflicts continue to drive up costs. Well, according to the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization, the prices for certain foods rose a further 2.4% in the month of March, following an initial increase in February after the start of the war. Well, this marks the highest level since September last year. Now, the report warns that prices could climb even higher if the conflict persists. Well, the latest increase reflects the cost of 5 key commodities: meat, dairy, cereals, that's including maize, vegetable oils, and sugar. Vegetable oils recorded the largest jump, followed by sugar, which rose by an average of 7.2%. Now, this report also highlights rising global maize prices as concerns over higher fertilizer costs continue to put pressure on agriculture. Here is the Food and Agriculture Organization's chief economist.
We have 30% of the fertilizers moving across the Strait of Hormuz, 35% of oil moving across the Strait of Hormuz, between 20 to 25% of natural gas, and 45% of sulfur. All of these are essential inputs for the production of agriculture products. What that means is that if this continues and the Strait of Hormuz is not open for more than 30 or 40 days, then as we move in the crop calendar, between April and May, key exporting countries will have to make decisions. And that's where farmers will have to decide if they plant the same, if they plant less, the same with less inputs, if they move towards commodities that are have more capacity to fix nitrogen, or if they move part of their supply to biofuels.
Now, at the same time, a new report by the United Nations, the African Development Bank, and the African Union warns that a prolonged conflict in the Middle East could further slow Africa's growth this year. The report says the continent risks losing economic momentum as fuel and fertilizer costs rise, trade routes are disrupted, and food prices increase, raising the risk of a broader cost of living crisis. With many African countries heavily dependent on food and energy imports, the combined pressure is likely to hit households and farmers hardest. Now, earlier, I spoke to the Malian economist Modibo Makalu. I first asked him if African countries should be worried about this new report.
Actually, as of now, Africa imports 1/3 of all the food it consumes. So basically, we should be very much worried. And also the fact that fertilizer might not be available during the planting season, which is between March and June, could be worrisome too.
I mean, 10 African countries are now producing significant amounts of fertilizer. Can they be called upon to support where there might be shortfalls from fertilizer imports from other parts of the world?
Well, same as refined petroleum products. You have about 10 countries that are net exporters, but you have most African countries. You have 38 African countries that are net importers of refined petroleum products, including fertilizer. So that will not be enough. We need to increase production in Africa, and basically we need to add more value added to our products, especially petroleum products, as Dangote is doing in Nigeria now. This is an experience that needs to be duplicated in other African oil-producing countries.
Some African countries were not food secure even before the war. What measures should governments take to now sort of factor in the rising prices of food to ensure that we don't have sort of famine alerts and so forth with rising food prices?
Well, this is a very important question, and this is something that worries me a lot because, it's planting season as of now. And with fertilizer supply waning because of the situation in the of the Strait of Hormuz, we might see significant drops in yields if fertilizer is available, even in decreasing quantities. Yields might decrease, but we might, also get into difficulties in, supplying food crops. So this is a major issue, and also with the weather, the climate change affecting Africa a lot these days. So I think it's going to be a very difficult situation for Africa, but we need to go through this structural transformation, meaning we need to leave less value-added sectors to go to more value-added sectors. And I think with the African free trade area, this is an opportunity for Africans to trade among themselves and to add value added to the products they have, including foodstuffs.
Should there be a significant increase in food prices, should there be, how might that affect the economic performance of some of these African countries whose backbone is agriculture?
Well, not only is agriculture, rural development, the backbone of African economies, but it's also the fact that in Africa, you have about 60 to 70% of the population that lives in rural areas. So, we need to really take that into account, that also with the urban population being fed by the rural population, that we need really to work on the food production increase. We need to be self-sufficient to ensure that food security becomes a reality in Africa.
I mean, this report is coming out at a time when African countries are seeing an increase in the price of petroleum at the pump as well. What are we likely to see in different sectors?
Well, as of today, today is the 35th day after the war began, and petroleum prices have much increased. And when prices of petroleum products, especially refined products like fuel, increase in Africa, it brings up, it means a hike in inflation, meaning general prices of food and services increase.